Hello, everybody. Oh, can you hear me? It's chapter 23, page 24. On previous streams, I worked on the pencils on this page, and then I worked on the background inks using a dip pen and nib. And now I am going to work on the figures and spot blacks using a brush. This is my trusty Winsor Newton Series 7, number 4. And so I'm going to start getting into it. Oh, I just realized I'm missing something off my desk. Let me look on my pile of junk next to my desk. I need my trusty piece of scrap paper for honing my tip. Because when I first load my brush up with inks, it's kind of fat and not really pointed. So I just kind of keep this piece of scrap paper off to the side so that I can knock that point into shape and start inking. Especially when I'm loading it up from being dry at the very beginning. It can take a couple of goes to get it nice and honed down. That's looking pretty good. All right, so I'm going to start up here, getting some of these little spot blacks filled in. Hone that point down a little more again since I loaded it up some more before I start working on the figure's face. Trying to get that very tiny little face without losing all of the detail there. I'll try not to get my big old head in the way too much here. It's kind of a challenge. Well, that line got a little fat. That's okay. Oh, I don't like how that worked. Let's try that. Yeah, it made it a little better. Now we can get that spot black right up against that now that I have that line. It's the underside of her veil there, so I'm going to try to get that kind of shadowed there. I'm trying to work from this corner up here. I always try to start from the upper left corner and kind of work to the right and down in whatever way is most logical. So the other thing is I always want to get stuff that's in the foreground ahead of what's ever in the background, just to make sure I don't get any weirdness of lines from the background like overlapping onto the front. But like obviously she's way in the foreground here, she's way in the background, but their forms don't overlap. So I can wait to get to her last since she's down in the right bottom corner. But like here, this little window is above her with the spot black. I kind of want to get her put in here first so that my spot black doesn't accidentally moosh over onto where she is. Get this little cloth bit. I don't even know what you would call this thing. That's just like a sash that hangs down in front of her skirt. I guess I could just call it a sash. It's like specifically like an ornamental piece of her outfit as a priestess. I don't know. I'm sure there's a term for it. I just don't know what it is. Get her little booted foot down here. fill in that other little window and try not to bulldoze over these tiny little details that are over against this big black blob. All right, it would help if my point would stay together. Let's cooperate now, brush. I don't remember when I bought this. I think we might be reaching the end of our lifespan here. Time has turned into such a blur lately. Like, when did I buy this? I don't know. Was it like a couple months ago? Was it a year ago? I don't know. Everything is just mush at this point. I'm not sure how it's July already. I don't know what's going on. Try to get these highlights in her hair in a way that still follows the form of her head, so that rather than her hair being this big black blob, it actually still gives you an idea of the shape of her head. It still looks like a round object. Gonna do this before, because again, this is the back of her tunic is in the foreground ahead of the back of her head, because she's hunched over. Oh, and I forgot to put in the tile texture there for the ground. That's okay. We can fill that in very carefully with the brush to mimic what I did with the nib there earlier and forgot to fill in. I do that all the time, those little gaps in the figure's pose. And it's like, oh, that should have been background texture. Whoops. There we go. Okay. So there's the first. Let's see how much I get through of this in the hour. About 16 minutes in already. Oh my word. And I realize as I'm like straining to look at this that I keep forgetting that I'm an old lady and need to wear my reading glasses so that I can see what I'm doing. Okay. Again, we're starting left to right. And so the thing that's in foremost right here ahead of everything else is going to be that braid on the back of her head. So that's where we're going to start. Not that this is like a thing that you have to do. I just find it works a little bit easier for me so that I'm not accidentally running over stuff with my lines. I follow Gail Simone on Twitter, who's wonderful, and you should follow her on Twitter if you do the Twitter. And she had this topic trending where she was like, hey, what's the worst advice you ever, like worst creative advice you ever got? And someone mentioned that they had asked comics professionals what they used to correct mistakes in inking, and they were just like, don't make mistakes. It's like, what is it? Just everybody makes mistakes. What is that? What is that? That's not advice. That's just silly. Absolute silliness. Why would you say that to somebody? For my comic pages, for when I have to cover something over. And then sometimes I still don't catch everything. I'll forget that I had made a mistake somewhere, like something really minor, like these tiny little lines that just go past the panel border here. And most people are never going to see them, but I know they're there and they bother me. But if I forget to catch them when I'm cleaning up the pages anyway, traditionally, I'll just fix it in Photoshop. Like, I don't think you should use Photoshop as an excuse to half-ass your pages and not do a neat professional job, but you know, it exists and you can use it. There's nothing wrong with that. Like my whole process relies on Photoshop being there to take out all the blue underdrawing. This would never work if pages were still photographed with a camera, which thank goodness they are not. Get a little more on my brush there. And I'm going to get this spot black up in the corner here because everything else is going to be lower than that on the page. I don't want to drag my hand through any of this ink later. It's another muggy day here, so everything is taking a little while to dry. I'm just going to fill that little spot in black. I feel like that just makes it a little more clear what's happening with these being two separate pieces of fabric, and it has like a veil parting on either side over her shoulder there. I don't know. I feel like that just makes more sense. It just makes the situation read a little better. Also, like, super pleased with how the drawing came out on this panel. Her face in particular just came out so good. Always a pleasant surprise when you pull something off better than you expected to. Also, I'm not sure how many more of these pages I'm going to be able to share with you, because this is getting toward the end of the chapter, and it gets real spoilery here. Like, I don't want to give away some of the fun stuff that happens at the end of this chapter, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing any more Age of Night pages for a little while, or if I'm going to have to just work on other stuff on the stream, because yeah, I don't want to spoil what's happening next. Because there's like a really, really fun scene right after this. And I want people to be able to be like, that was great, instead of seeing it like weeks early on the art stream and being like, oh yeah, I knew that was coming. Because, you know, like some of these pages, this page is still several weeks out, and it's like, yeah, you're like, you're gonna know that this page is coming, but nothing like revelatory happens on this page. Like, it's perfectly good page and moves the story along, but it's not like some kind of big payoff for something that's been set up. It's not like one of the big turns in the plot or anything, I guess is what I mean by it not being spoilery. I have to very carefully try to get her face, even though I just inked over here, because again, those are ahead of her head and shoulders on the picture plane. But I don't want to drag my hand through wet ink. There we go. To concentrate on that one a little bit. It's the one thing about when your pencil drawing comes out really good and you're like, oh, I really like how this came out. Oh no, so much pressure to not screw it up when I ink it. All right. Try to get down in this little corner here. All right, there we go. I think that panel's pretty much done. I'm going to move on to this next one here. Making pretty good time. I'm about 30 minutes in and I've got 2 of the panels done. All right, I did decide after looking at the page that this whole background here is going to be swap black. Is this the best decision? I don't know. It's the decision I made, though. Fill in this great big space. Gee, I wonder why I go through ink so fast. Gee, I wonder. All right. So I got most of that black right up to the edge here. Brush, why you being like that? Hang on, I gotta spin my paper around to get it to a good angle for inking the different stuff that I'm working on. Try to get some of this stuff that it's like that's just a shape. How do I make it look more like it's the strap of a tunic? Just kind of add a little bit of like, oh, maybe there's like a little bit of a fold there or something that helps to describe that form a little better. Okay, now I have that outer line. I can fill in the rest of the black right up to that shape. Oh, my head is getting in the way, sorry. It's a face. Hello. It's Gavin. Hi. Oh, thank you so much. I enjoy sharing this with people. I like watching other people make art too, so I like to do this. Sorry if your comment had been hanging out for a while. I was trying really hard not to screw up the pencils on this panel that I liked the way they came out. So I was focusing. Get a little bit more. Get the rest of her very dark hair in there. Get that. Describe that shape on her bun with the highlights here. Where am I going? I always forget that the camera, when I look up at it, is backwards. I always forget that. I've got a couple of teensy weensy windows to fill in over here. But it was like, this is just big enough that I don't want to have to try to do it with a pen nib, because trying to fill in even a tiny spot black with a pen nib is it's just not a fun time. They're not made for that. All right, there's those windows filled in. That didn't take any time at all. I just have to get fill inked here. These itty bitty bits of the LinkedIn here. So tiny. Okay, there's that tiny figure. Oh, wait, there's a trim on his tunic. That's right. There. There. Okay. Let's see, we're at 45 minutes. I only have 2 panels left. Oh, this is cruising right along. There's not much to either of these panels either, so we'll see how close I get before the hour's out. Try to keep the streams to just about an hour because we all have things we need to do. One of my friends, another comic artist, did a like 11-hour stream yesterday, like art stream yesterday. She just had it. She was just streaming to Twitch while she was working on her computer, and I'm just like, how? I mean, I assume she took breaks, but still, how? Cannot even imagine. I think Twitch is more like geared toward that sort of thing, though. But that's my friend Shauna Bombard. Her online handle is usually Prin Crim or Princess Crimson. I don't remember what her handle is specifically on Twitch, but you can probably find her with some combination thereof. She does digital art. She has long since abandoned the traditional art ways that some of us peasants still stick with. All right, so there's the back of Thel's head in the background, and now I've got to fill in these spot blacks, which is actually a wee bit tricky because there's all these little shrubs and trees stuff to work around. There's an eraser crumb on my page. Get off of there. So I don't want to lose these nice little shrubby textured shapes that I did with the pen here. So I've got to be very careful in outlining them with the ink. To totally steamroll them. All these tiny little details. And I have yet another one of these figures that's half disappearing into shadow, which has been like a theme for this chapter. It's a thing I've done several times now, is figures either emerging from or disappearing into shadow. It's like I didn't even realize how many times I'd done it in the script until I was drawing it, and then I was like, oh, this happens like a lot in this chapter, I guess. Hopefully that still reads as like a person with their cloak billowing out behind them, disappearing into the swamp. I don't know. I don't know if that's my most successful. Okay, correction. I know that's not my most successful attempt at that idea in this chapter. I'm just hoping it's still readable. Because I spend so much time staring at this stuff, working on it, and that it's like, is this working? Because like I know what I'm looking at, but I also am constantly criticizing my own work of like, oh, I could have done that better, could have done that better. So it's very difficult to be objective and be like, oh, this clearly does what I am, communicates what I want it to. That's why it's helpful to have other eyes on your work sometimes. Obviously, that's not always practical when you're working on something like a webcomic where you're just like cranking pages out and trying to get them updated constantly. So trying to fit editors into that flow is a little bit tricky. Let's see, it is now 51 minutes, 47 seconds into the stream. So I will work on this very last panel. I don't know if I'll quite finish it, but we'll get awful close. And I'll tell you about all the things like I have to do at the end of every single one of these streams, because this is life. This is life when you're self-employed, promoting, self-published, all this stuff. So I'm Amanda Call. I am working on my webcomic, Age of Night. You can read it on all for free on ageofnight.com. That's AGEOFNIGHT. There's a new comic page every Wednesday. And while the whole thing is available for free there, you can also support me on Patreon. And even just $1 a month gets you all of your comic pages a week in advance. Plus, depending on their level of patronage, you can get all sorts of other cool behind-the-scenes looks and free comics and all sorts of fun stuff. You can also buy copies of my comic you can buy paperbacks of it on that great big website where you can buy all the things. You know the one I'm talking about. And you can also get ebook versions of it there, but if you want to get a PDF version of it, your best bet is at Skirmisher's website. That's skirmisher.com. They're my online publisher. They do PDF versions of it, which are even higher res. So if you like to be able to like zoom in and look real close at stuff, and for my money, I think it's the best digital version of the comic. It's a higher res than the website, so that's cool, and a higher res than the Kindle version. And I think they're running a sale right now too, so you can even get all 3 volumes of my comic with bonus content as well. The book versions of it do have content you can't find online on the website, because I try to make it worth your while to support me financially. I appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter at Age of Night, on Instagram at Amanda Call Art. There's a Facebook page for Age of Night. It's just called Age of Night. It's like the URL is like facebook.com/Age of Night comic or something like that. I don't know. Just search for Age of Night. You'll find it. And if you like watching me do these streams, then you can like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell thingy so that it'll tell you when I'm going live. They're constantly changing the way those buttons work, so, you know, all of these social medias and their changes to their algorithms, making those of us who try to make a living online completely crazy. Oh, we're so close. Only a couple minutes left. Can I do it? I think that's all the things. Skirmisher sale is cool. They're a game company that I do illustration for, and so a ton of their products feature my work, but they also publish a digital copy of my comic. So their sale is pretty cool because you got all sorts of fun stuff for like D&D source books and paper miniatures that you can print out and use at home. Other kind of game books and game systems. Ragnarok Age of Wolves is on there, which is a really cool minis, like skirmish war game minis game that I have a lot of fun with. Also features a lot of my artwork, of course. But yes, you can pick up my comic and a bunch of cool gaming stuff all at the same time. So close. We're almost done with this one. Oh, his beard. So much texture. So much texture in the beard. Oh my gosh, we're gonna make it. It's gonna happen. And it looks like that's gonna do it. 57 minutes, and I finished inking this comic page. Sweet. I don't usually actually completely finish the page on the stream. That's great. Exciting. All right, there we go. So now that is Age of Night, chapter 23, page 24, and I'm calling that one done. Look at that. I did the brush inking on all 6 of these panels in the hour, so that was pretty cool. Thanks everybody for joining me, and I will see you all next time. Bye.